All right, everyone, we are here with two very special guests, Madelyn Cline and Chase Stokes. They play John B. and Sarah Cameron in Netflix's new show, Outer Banks. We are pumped to have you guys here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Guys,
we are, like you said, so excited. We've done nothing but talk about this show for a week straight, plus.
That's amazing.
Yes. I just want to go ahead and throw her under the bus. She did a little fan art for you guys.
Yeah.
We want to.
Oh,
cute.
There you go. Oh, by the way, I didn't even talk about this in the other recaps. I have actually two things to mention. One, in the last episode, there was a Viva La Stool sticker, a Barstool sticker in the rec, which I just found that out the other day.
I didn't know. That's amazing.
I don't think you guys would know that, but I was very excited. And number two, I did call Ward Cameron Cam Ward the entire time.
So I grew up playing hockey. Like, that was my jam my whole life. So when I heard that at first, I was like, hold on.
Cam Ward.
Like, he's a goalie for the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yes.
Right.
Filmed in the Carolinas. I was like, are we playing a fun game?
I think I just had heard the name before, and it is already a name, so I just kept saying it. And afterwards, I was dying laughing when I saw the tweets where they were like, "Well, come on the show if you admit that you said Cam Ward the entire time."
Evidence has happened, and here we are.
Exactly.
Well, I want to talk about how you guys even got in with the show in the first place, because I think for me, when I listen to, actors talk about new shows and such, I like to hear about the auditioning process, because I feel like that's something that goes untalked about often. So I want to know what that was like for both of you.
Sure. Might as well. So.
Okay. Mine was short. It was, I auditioned in Charleston. So I flew home to see my parents, and then went to the production office, and I was there all day. And Jonas pulled me aside, and he's basically like, hey, so we don't want Netflix to say no. So we're going to do this all different types of ways so they can't say no. And that's when it was I was like, oh, okay. And then after that, it was basically I really connected with Jonas and his daughter, Lila, who is Dead Body. And
what episode is that? 3, 2, 1?
2 or 3, I think.
Just count it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after that, I flew back to LA, and then he called me and he was like, what the fuck, where are you? Why aren't you here? We need you here. And so I immediately flew back, packed up all my stuff. And it was pretty much signed, sealed, delivered. And so, but because it happened so fast, I was like, I'm going to get fired. This is not real. They've got the wrong girl for sure. I think they're really confused. But I never got fired. And here we are. So that was my process. It was definitely the shortest, fastest audition process I've ever been through.
Yeah.
Ever.
And mine, I got the audition for John B. mid-February. And when an audition comes through as an actor, you get an email and it says the character name, what the character's supposed to be like, and then it gives you a little breakdown of the show, and then that's pretty much it. And the first time I got the audition, it was the most bland email I've ever got. It just said 4 friends on a treasure hunt, Netflix, and the character name was John B. So I'm like, this is the fucking Goonies. We're reboot. And so I said no. I was like, I don't want to touch a piece of iconic cinema and destroy it. I was like, that's my worst nightmare, is doing a bad reboot. So I told my agent, I was like, nope, not doing it. He pushed me and was like, dude, you need to do it. So I said no. And then, obviously in LA, it's super expensive and, money goes quick. So very quickly after that, I was on unemployment, and the role of Topper came through. And I was like, I don't even care at this point. At least I'm not one of the main, kids in the show. I can be the stereotypical asshole on the outskirts. And so I read for it, and it was a really shitty day. It was I had a lot of family stuff going on. And I got a parking ticket as I was at the audition, forgot all my lines, apologized to the casting director before I even read. And I walked out of there and I was just like, oh, okay, I'm for sure going to get dropped from my agent. So I grew up in Florida, and the casting and acting community in the Southeast is very, very small. So the casting director who actually booked me my first job ever on this really unique and one season VH1 series called Daytime Divas, which we won't talk about. She called me and was like, hey, I have this project called Outer Banks and they can't find their guy. Would you be interested in reading for it? And I was like, I don't really want to do it because I know it's a Goonies reboot. And I'm pretty sure I've butchered every relationship in this show because I just bombed the audition for Topper. And she's like, I've known Jonas my whole life. We're really good friends. I'll send you the first episode. Read it. I'll send you materials. And this is in April. So I'm like, all right, whatever. So she sends it and I read the pilot and I'm like, oh my God, like this is not the Goonies. Like I can't believe I screwed this up so bad. So I immediately called her back and I was like, yes, yeah, I definitely want to read for this. So that was on Wednesday. So she's like, we'll hear back by Friday if they're interested. It's going to be a quick turnaround because they're really starting to, ramp up production. So I read, and then I sent it in that night, and Friday came and I didn't hear anything. So I was like, okay, it's Easter weekend. I'm just going to go to brunch and drink a bunch of mimosas and drown my, sorrows away. And so I'm sitting at brunch with a bunch of friends. My agent calls me on a Sunday and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, happy Easter first and foremost. Right there, it's the Lord's Day. And then he's like, are you available? And I'm like, Tom, I'm unemployed. So yes. And he's like, I'll call you right back. And I'm like, this is either going to go one of two ways. Like, this is really not cool. And so I'm sitting at brunch with friends. I'm like, what's going on? Like, you keep walking away. So he calls me and he's like, you're getting on a flight. And I'm like, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, next week, whatever. He's like, tonight, 10:55, you're taking a red eye to Charleston. I'm sending you 19 pages of dialogue, the first 4 episodes. You need to get to the airport now. And it's like 3:30 in the afternoon. I'm in Pasadena, which is nowhere close to LAX. And so I just kind of looked at everybody around me and I'm like, I gotta go. Like, what's going on? And I'm like, apparently I'm going to Charleston. So I went to the airport, got on the plane. I'll never forget it. I was in 33B, which is the very last row of the plane, in a middle seat on a red eye. And I was reading the entire night all the way through. I got to the airport. My credit card payment had gone through on my debit card and it had overdrafted my account. So I couldn't even get an Uber from the airport to go to the production office. So I called my mom and I was like, Mom, this is really bad. I'm in Charleston. Why are you in Charleston? And I'm like, it's a long story. I'm here for like maybe a job. I don't know if I'm going to get it. Probably not. But like, can I borrow $100? And she's like, just go do the right thing. And I was like, okay. So I went from the airport to the production office. I walked in. I was like so bummed because of everything that had just happened. I hadn't slept in literally 48 hours. And I walk in and somebody's sitting on the couch and I had like my hood on and a hat. And I was like, hey, I know this is probably the weirdest question you're ever going to be asked, but I just sat in the middle seat on a red eye. Can you walk on my back? And he was like, sure, yeah. So she's walking on my back and she just says, like, I probably should have told you this beforehand, but I'm Maddie. I'm playing Sarah Cameron. Like,
Wow.
Okay. And then at that moment, Josh, Jonas, and Shannon, the guys who created the show, they like walk out of the conference room and they see this happening. And they're like, okay, well,
this is my work.
We should probably do a chemistry read real quick. And I was like, oh, we're doing a chemistry read. All right, sweet. So Maddie and I did our read. Everything went great. Jonas kind of tells me about their idea for the show. And he's like, why don't you come back tomorrow? We'll go over the materials. The network test will be Wednesday. And I'm like, okay, so at least I have more than 4 hours to prepare for an audition this time. So I go back to the hotel or whatever. I come back to the production office the next day thinking, we're just going to go over materials. So I just come in like jeans and a pair of, like, just a t-shirt, like not prepared for anything. And he walks out and he goes, surprise, we're doing the network test. And I'm like, oh, I'm not getting this job. Like, and the other dude who's reading for John B is like this drop dead gorgeous Australian dude who has a beautiful accent. And I'm like, this is a wrap. Like, I'm done. You guys can go ahead and book my flight. Like, it's been real. Thanks for flying me out. I'm still broke, but whatever. And so I got really frustrated at just like everything that had happened. So I like had a full flood, like a giant mental breakdown. And I was sitting out front of the production office, just kind of freaking out. And Jonas walked out and he happened to like see me kind of panicking. And he was like, this is your job. And I was like, I don't understand. He's like, this is your job. So go fucking get it. And I was like, all right. So we went in, we did the reads and all this stuff. So Rudy and I read together, me and another kid read together, and it was just like kind of this combination of doing a bunch of different stuff. And so then we get an Uber, or we're leaving, and I had like $25 at this point in my bank account. So I look back and I'm like, can you guys like give me an Uber or something back to the hotel? I don't have money and I'm trying to eat dinner, and this is just a bad situation, and I'm sorry. And Jonas just kind of laughed at me because I had nothing at this point. And so Rudy was like, I'll call an Uber. And so Rudy's sitting in the front seat. I'm sitting behind Rudy, and this other kid reading for John B is sitting next to me. And I see Rudy like on his phone, and we had lied to the Uber driver. We were like, yeah, we're here, for a Jeopardy taping. And full of ourselves. And Rudy's like on his phone, and I'm like, good man, you're really quiet up there. And this other kid is just kind of sitting there doing his own thing. And my phone rings, and I didn't recognize the number. And I pick up the phone. I'm like, hey, it's Chase. I'm like, you got the fucking job, dude. Go get tan. Like, blah, blah, blah. And I just panicked. So I was like, oh shit. And I hung up the phone. And the kid next to me was like, did you get the job? And I was like, no, just my other stuff. And he's like, right. And then I just see Rudy go. And I was like,
yeah.
Back to the hotel, and like the kid went down the hall, and then Rudy and I like immediately ran into each other, and that's where it started.
That was exactly 1 year ago today, too.
Yeah.
Wow. Happy anniversary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last night, Jonas sent us some of like our first auditions and our chemistry reads, and it was funny because this was before we had all like been out in the sun, and like my natural hair color is very dark brown, and so I saw the thumbnail. I was like, oh, these are for all the actors, okay, because they kind of look similar to us. And then I looked it up, it was us, like pre-tan, pre-getting like chemically dependent hair, and so yeah, no, that was exactly a year ago today, which is kind of wild to think about.
Yeah.
That is, that's insane. And the fact that you were in the car with the other person auditioning for John B, like brutal. I'm just kind of crawling out of my skin thinking about that, getting secondhand embarrassment.
It was the worst, best experience I've ever had in my life, because I just wanted to be on the phone and be like blowing up, but I'm just like, okay, we've got 6 minutes left in this Uber. Like, go a little faster. Like, but yeah, no, it was really surreal. And then I never went back to LA. So I didn't get to go home and pack clothes. Like, I had a small suitcase with like a pair of jeans, a pair of shorts, and 3 t-shirts and a jacket. And that was it. So Emmy, who's the head of our wardrobe department, she was so great, and she knew about everything because I kind of opened up to her that day. I was like, I don't have anything. She was like, just come in, we'll give you some clothes, da-da-da-da-da. So I showed up to the Netflix like dinner that they do for their new shows as they launch. She gave me a Charleston County jail shirt. And so I show up, I'd had a couple drinks beforehand. I'm like, what's up? And like all of a sudden,
I'm here to party.
Like inmate number on and it's like this really nice restaurant. And they're like, oh man.
Yeah.
Probably messed this one
that
up.
Was, so yeah, we were, they had us in boating lessons and everything, which was cool. But we went straight from like doing that and swimming lessons, just so they could make sure we weren't lying about our swimming abilities. And we showed up from there to this dinner, and Chase has this Charleston County jail shirt on, and I'm already like a couple glasses of wine deep, and Jonas is like, this is Emily. She's like an executive at Netflix.
Right.
And I was like, oh God, I need to be more sober for this. This is not going to work out for me. So I proceeded to drink more wine. I was like, that's my solution.
Best solution.
That's honestly the answer, because when you feel like you're too drunk, there's nothing you can do at that point. You can't take back.
Gotta keep rolling with it.
You can't take it back. You just have to keep drinking.
I'm like, my contract's signed, so if I make a fool of myself, this is on.
And the point you made up about, you brought up about the clothes. So first episode, I saw you wearing Dubin. Shout out to our friends at Dubin.
Story. Austin, who started Dubin, is a friend of mine. So I grew up in Orlando. So me and Austin over at Dubin are like buddy, and we have like a very close relationship. I'm actually waiting for a package from him right now. So could show up at any second. Yeah, no, I didn't even know at the time. So I walked into my fitting and they had a bunch of his shirts. And I actually wore Dubin a couple times in the show. And I immediately was like, yo, dude, like, I'm about to plug the hell out of your stuff. Like, this is crazy. And he's like, well, first of all, what are you talking about? And I'm like, okay, I know like most of the time I'm broke and like down on my luck, but like now I'm doing a Netflix series and shirts are going to be in it. And he's like, what? So it's cool, like to come full circle and do it. Actually, look at that.
Yep. Yeah, I see it.
Subtle plug. But yeah, no, it's really cool to kind of like have this journey with, you know, a buddy from Orlando and have him kind of get a little success off of what he's done in the past couple of years with this company, and then to like have it sort of combined into this weird thing. It's been really cool.
Yeah, I get excited when like I wear stuff from Dubin and people are like, what is that from? I just like get really excited to shout them out. I had people ask us on the podcast because I talked about it. I was like thinking about wearing some of my like Dubin stuff now because I'm really feeling this Outer Banks energy. And I had so many people DM me being like, what's the name of the brand? And now all those people are checking it out, which is awesome.
It's crazy how Dubin's kind of become like a staple, like a John B staple.
Yeah.
It's so perfect too.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't really I didn't have any idea what the wardrobe was going to be. I just kind of wanted it to be a little bit out there because, you know, this character does do a little bit of ridiculous shit throughout the entire show. So we kind of tried to take pieces that obviously were aged up that you would probably assume he just saw in a thrift store, like a Goodwill, and he's like, I don't know, that's cool. And then like after seeing the Dubin shirt, I was like, I don't know if that's like a thrift store find, but whatever, we're gonna plug it.
Yeah,
right.
So it's cool.
It is the shirts are awesome. Rhea was wearing one the other day and I was like, that button down's really cool. And she's like, and I was like, it kind of reminds me of John B. She was like, yeah, it's Dubin. He wears them during the show. I was like, okay, maybe this is starting to get kind of weird.
I had it before the show. So
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I swear.
Madelyns, you said that you guys were in like boating lessons and swimming stuff. Like you guys do pretty crazy things throughout the show. And I know more for like the boys too, with all the fight scenes. Like Rhea and I joke that there isn't a fight scene that doesn't end with the possibility of someone dying. So how did you guys prepare to learn all of those things? Because it's kind of like very extreme.
We had an amazing stunt department. Shout out to Toby and Rob and Wolf. Like they were great about making sure that we were safe. But it's funny, like everything about the show, it's kind of like the audition process was kind of just like foreshadowing how the rest of the show would be. It's just like, we're just going to throw this stuff at you and make it work. And so like, we had boating lessons and we had swimming lessons and that was all fine. And then, you know, for fights, we obviously had rehearsals, you know, it's kind of like a dance. We had to choreograph it and everything. But what's really cool about, you know, like our stunt department, they were so good about, you know, making sure everything was choreographed that a lot of the shots that we got in the fight scenes are actually like us doing the choreography. But yeah, no, we tried to prepare, I think a few times. I think like Rudy and Drew got clocked by each other one time.
Yeah, I was gonna say somebody had to accidentally get punched at least once.
There was one. I think it was at the movie. There was one time I think Drew went a little too hard and actually did get Rudy a little bit, and there was like spit that kind of flew.
Yeah.
And you could just hear Bo, our camera operator, be like,
yeah.
I was standing right behind Bo because on the days that I didn't work, I'm like a super camera nerd and want to direct in the future. So I was like, all right, how are we doing this? What's going on? So I'm like literally this far from Bo's back and he's like doing these camera moves to really sell the punches. And then one of them just like lands and you just see the, and he's like, oh shit.
They ended up using that shot too. I mean, why not? But like,
yeah, that's the most legitimate shot.
It sold.
Yeah.
That day too, we were sneaking around, like, so we weren't on set obviously because it was the Pokes and the Kooks, like, you know, kind of going at it. And so we were like, why don't we go to set, dress up as background and try to sneak around and get in the shot for as long as possible without being recognized. And I think we were there for like 2.5, 3 hours,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
like just running. We were raiding the mini bar at the country club. So
we got literally
nice.
almost away. We got literally 2 feet in front of the camera. And then JD turns around. He's like, really? And then we were like, God. All right.
Yeah, it was like they had their spidey senses. They were like, damn it, y'all. We messed up the setup for the shot, like had to get everybody else in. Yeah, I felt really bad because that day we didn't have our core camera operators, so they were like, who the fuck are these kids? Like, what are you doing?
We're like, sorry, just a bunch of extras who really want some screen time.
You're like,
right.
I feel like that's the best though, because, you know, being serious all the time on set, nobody's going to have a good time doing that. But having the chemistry that it seems like you all have is amazing. It seems like you guys are all so close, right?
Yeah. It's pretty strange how quick we all clicked. And that's a tongue twister. But we all moved into the same apartment complex. Rudy and I lived together in the same place the entire time. And every weekend we were just all at mine and Rudy's place. And it was just, there's so much to do in Charleston. And there's so many great restaurants. There's some good bars. There's some good, little clubs that we would go out to. So it was almost like summer camp, to where you're forced into this little thing. And then it's like, Netflix is going to sponsor it and they're going to pay. We're like, okay, well, we got a little bit of extra cash and let's just have the best time ever. Yeah. So while you're working on this show, which the script is so good and it's so fun in itself, and then to do it with people that you actually enjoy being around, it just made for like this instant long-term family friendship that you have that's translated outside the show too. Like for Easter, JD's mom cooked us all dinner and brought it over to our place because, we're all quarantining together. And we did that. And then we've gone over there multiple times for dinner, just sitting around the table with him and his family. So it's just really cool to kind of have this experience and grow in that weird bubble of Charleston for the first season, where like we kind of didn't really know, like we knew we had a really cool project. But with Netflix and how the algorithm works, we're like, it could not work. Like it could just fall under the radar and nobody ever see it. So we were like, let's just take this experience and run with it. Yeah, let's just have a good time. And we'll always look back and say, this was, a lot of fun outside of work as well as getting to work. And whatever happens, happens. Like,
I think like the big thing for me that I've, kind of been really like surprised by, but in the best way possible, is that, like when you're on a set, especially, or when you're on location, you're working together, you're together a lot, and you might have this great friendship, but then when you move back home, sometimes that translates differently. People kind of drift apart, which is totally fine. But it's interesting because with this cast in particular, we came back to LA and it's just like we just like uprooted all the debauchery and just landed, like base planted back in LA, like nothing changed, which is really cool because it's like, I think we all have a really great core group of friends, and we also have the show in common too. So it's like the friendship, it goes deep.
Yeah.
And it's great because I think it comes through on the show. Like you can tell when people have real chemistry. Like, yes, you are playing friends, but when there is that friendship in real life, I think it's so transparent and so easy to see. And you guys talked about you mentioned the Netflix, obviously the algorithm. People could have watched it, people couldn't have watched it. Yeah. When was the moment that you guys realized, like, okay, people are actually really watching this show and really loving it?
I think the trailer was the first notification that we were on as something, because I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'll just say it anyways. So Netflix, our marketing team was like, okay, if the trailer gets, 500,000 views in 24 hours, then we'll know we're on something. And so we kind of got that information. And then the next day when the trailer came out, we had hit over 1 million views in the first 4 or 5 hours. So we were like, okay, like people actually dig this. And the worst part about it was Netflix does this like what to watch video that they release the beginning of the month to show you, but they keep just like consistent elevator themed music going undertoned on all of the shows for the same thing the entire time. So it was like this weird elevator music of me and my friends on a boat, like tackling each other. And it looked so goddamn cheesy. And we all just were like, all right, well, and people were literally in the comments just bashing it.
Shitting on it.
Bullshit, like, oh my God.
It's the internet.
Yep.
Yeah, just ultimate trolling was happening.
Yeah.
And then the trailer came out and that went really well. And then people sort of started to progressively dig into the show and be like, oh my gosh, this seems really sick.
Yeah.
And then the early reviews came out the day before the show came out. And I got dragged. They were like, okay, they just took this Abercrombie looking kid and dumped him in a Netflix show and whatever. And one of my really good friends is the lead in Ryan Murphy's new Netflix series, Hollywood. And he and I went to high school together back in Florida, and he's had the whole like Broadway success. He's multiple Tony nominee, he's Grammy nominated. And he like gave me the biggest pep talk. He's like, just let it ride. Like my first reviews when I was on Broadway were, he sucks, is, Boys doesn't have emotion tied to it. And then 5 months later, I'm nominated for a Tony. So I was like, okay, that's kind of good. But still, subconsciously you're reading these reviews and you're like, oh dear God. And then it just exploded. Like it was this strange timeline of like everything shit hit the fan. Like it was 0 to 60 immediately. And then social media got super weird really quick. I think when we got to LA, I had like 3,000 followers, and then the show's been out for a little over 7 days now, and I'm like closing in on 500,000 people, and my brain just like doesn't process. It just doesn't, numbers.
especially right now during quarantine too. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, obviously the show is out, and in social media, it's crazy. Mm-hmm. It's crazy right now, but I think because we're kind of just all hunkered down, it doesn't feel like anything has changed.
Yeah.
It's right. Like we were talking about this last night. It's like when you have a birthday and the next day someone's like, how do you feel? Like, right. I don't feel like anything's different.
Yeah. You guys haven't had that like outside moment where people run up to you and they're like, John B, we love you.
Had 2. And
okay, 2 is insane. It's insane that it's only been 2.
Different in the ways that they work. So I was walking in my complex, like we have a little area where you can pick up like Amazon packages and stuff. And so I was going to pick it up, and I'm walking back with like a box in my hand, and somebody was like, oh my God, it's John B. And I was like, oh good God, like I'm compromised. This is my apartment, safe haven. And so like I zigzagged through a bunch of buildings and then go back up to mine, and I was like, all right, cool. Didn't get followed. And then I was, because we're quarantining at Maddie's with Drew, Rudy, and
one of our friends,
Elaine.
Yeah.
And so we were like, I was out front because one of my buddies was coming by to get a pair of sunglasses from me. And so we were talking just out front of the building, and I go through my DMs, because I try to respond to people every now and again, just stupid shit back and forth. And I look, and Tara Reid had messaged me from American Pie and all those movies. And she's like, hey, I saw you in your blue hoodie in Hollywood. Like, so excited about the show. And I'm like,
what the?
Tara Reid of all people. So that was kind of weird. And then Ric Flair, that was like the big one for me. Ric Flair, the Nature Boy.
Yeah.
WWE.
That.
He's obsessed. And so I sent him a video yesterday. So shout out to Ric Flair.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's insane. I mean, I was going to ask you, I feel like you described it just like the overnight success, especially with the internet. I mean, we see it all the time. Like just trolls are out of control, and also seeing all the people who like just become obsessed with you at the same time. How do you guys separate those two in your brain? Because I feel like this is something that's new to you guys, dealing with hate versus love, and you have to drown out all the hate.
Sure.
It's so funny because sometimes we'll just go on, like, in the beginning, like when people were dragging the show, Chase and I would just go on and just kind of troll back at people. Because I think
I am a troll.
Sometimes
sure.
we can't shut up. But because there are a lot of people that were shitting on it because it wasn't shot in Outer Banks, which obviously we have a very valid reason for not doing because of the bathroom bill. But so we would just kind of clap back. But I forgot where I was going with this.
Trolls. Trolls. Positive feedback.
But anyways, but the thing is, like, after, it's funny because some of the same people who were like trolling on us after the trailer came out and after the show came out would come back and be like, yo, I take it back. Like, the show is actually really fucking cool. Like, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Or like when people would, because some people would come to my page and they'd be like, leave passive aggressive comments like, well, why wasn't it shot in North Carolina? I was like, if you're going to come to my page, I'm going to educate you.
Yeah.
And so, but it's interesting because like the amount of people that will like the passive aggressive comments versus the people that support the reasons we have for doing what we did is exponentially
Yeah.
higher. So it's like, it's been overwhelmingly positive. And so I think because of that, it's easier to kind of keep our mouths shut.
Yeah.
Just because people have been so supportive. But it's so hard because sometimes you get that one negative comment and you really want to clap.
It's like for every 12 good comments you get, you see one shithead being, the show sucks, and then you're like, I'm gonna just murder you
right
virtually in the best way possible. But
we talk about it all the time, where we always like write back mean comments, and then we just screenshot it and send it to each other, but don't actually click send. Because once you click send, there's no coming back from it. And now they think they won. And also the same people who will hate on you are also the same people, if they see you out, they're gonna be like, oh my God, can I get a picture? So you just need to remember, they just want the attention.
It's totally, it's a lot of it has to do with clout. Like I've engaged in certain things that I'm not gonna mention names because I don't want to give him the time of day, but like you engage in certain things and you realize afterwards, it's like, oh, okay, this is totally because you realize that you can gain some sort of attention for your own brand, your own personal brand. And I've just kind of given you that validation. So I'm learning progressively as it's going that sometimes it's totally fine to engage and stand up for yourself. And I think that's something that I'm trying to kind of portray in especially in our generation. You know, like people are such assholes on social media. To achieve a specific image is such a narrative that has been driven to the younger generation. So I've talked a lot about like, it's totally fine to stand up for yourself and not feel like you have to post, you know, the most glamorous shit that you can find. And that's totally fine. And sometimes if there's somebody completely trolling you, then by all means put your 2 cents in. But I'm learning because growing up in the athletic community, like it's such a masculine thing to like stand your ground and be like, I'm going to kick your ass. So I've had to like tone it back a little bit and learn like, hey, I don't have to threaten people, or I don't have to, clap back to everybody because, the ratio situation, it's like, it's really like a 90 to 10% with the feedback, which is crazy thing.
It is crazy. It's really encouraging too. Cause like when you put something out there, it's like, you're just kind of taking your heart and your soul and you're just like, judge me.
Love me, please.
Judge me, but please be nice.
And you created something that you spent months doing, and people watch in literally a day. Like Rhea watched first. She watched so fast, told me like, you have to watch it. I had to cut myself off like, because I had watched 6 episodes in a day. And then I was like, I'm just going to stay awake for 24 hours. Like I have to take a break. And then I watched 4. So like it was in 24 hours, and then it was done. Like we had finished the whole thing. And it's crazy. Like the anxiety ride during this show was fantastic. It made your heart pump in the best way. We had a ton of people ask us what the most like intense emotional scene was for you guys to film.
Ooh, I think for me, it was the scene where I come back to the house and I've just gone and seen Lana, and I found out like the reality of my father's, situation. And I'm home expecting my friends to be there because we're always there, and then nobody's there. And then I do the Viking funeral for my dad. That was a rough day because we literally shot that in sequence. So we did Lana. So they had me walking through like shit pluff mud in the middle of the summer in Charleston, which is brutal.
It smells
and it sticks to you, and there's like oyster shells everywhere. So I was crying all morning, and then I got a little bit of a break for lunch, and then they shot the sequence of the flashback with her board and Scooter. And then they jumped into the evening stuff where I walk into the house and I see my friends, and we shoot a lot. Like we have never believed in like a 3-take type of thing. It's like, we're going to shoot every sequence. So we're going to go wide, we're going to push in, and then we're going to go into coverage, and we're going to do everything at least like 8 or 9 times so that we can really get into the grit of it and kind of lose track of like actually being filmed. So, when you're doing a take a total of, 30 plus times and you're just crying entirely for that long,
it's exhausting.
Yeah. Like you really it's like, I need to sleep for 17 days, but then I've got to get up at 5 a.m. and do it again. So that for me was for sure the roughest day.
Yeah. I mean, especially towards the end, Sarah goes through quite a bit. So, but I think probably the most distressing scene was the one at the police station, or with the SBI, and then also the tarmac. The tarmac was definitely the most exhausting 3 days for me on set. Just because, like, you know, we have the stuff in the plane, like, you know, Ward's dragging Sarah into the plane, and then she hits her head, and then, you know, like, and then the confrontation outside of the plane with Ward and John B, and then Rafe shows up, and then she sees someone get murdered by her brother. Like, so that was my eyes after those 3 days, my eyes were swollen for 2 days straight because of all the crying. And plus, like, it was like midsummer in Charleston, and it was like 100 degrees plus, and then the tarmac, you know, the sun's bouncing up off the concrete, the heat, and
so hot,
and emotional distress. It was absolutely exhausting. I mean, those are some of, I think 8, 9, and 10 are my favorite episodes, and I'm really, really proud of how they turned out. But I watched them and I'm like,
kind of get PTSD.
Yeah.
Like
a bit.
Yeah.
Like 10 minutes, and it was 3 days of the most exhausting shoot schedule on the shoot. And I'm just like, jeez, thank you so much to Vicks Vapor Rub for helping. Because that's the thing, is like, you can only cry so much, and that's we go from we punch in, so we go wide, then mid, and then close up. And so, you know, like, the thing is, like, when you're faced with those kinds of scenes, it's not, when you have such a great group of actors, it's not hard to get there because of, like, taking in what's going on. You're like, holy shit, like, the emotion is real. And that'll last. But then because we shoot so much, once you get into the close up, you're like, I'm dehydrated because I've cried out all the water in my body. And so shout out to Holly for being like, do you need some Vicks? Just put it on your eyeballs and you'll cry for like the next 3 hours.
Yeah.
And that actually worked?
Yeah.
I had one scene in particular, speaking of Vicks, where it's like in one of the later episodes when I meet back up with the Pogues and the blood is on my hands. And that was another day where I was like emotionally distraught. I'd shot the scene in the police station earlier that day. And so I had like this, it's like a stick, and you blow into the stick and it has, what's the stuff in it?
Oh, the mentholatum?
It's got menthol in it.
Menthol.
And so it kind of like, you know, makes your eyes water up. But it had been left out in the sun. And so I was like, okay, I just give me like a quick little shot of it. I want my eyes to be red. And I have no tears left again. It's like 5 days in a row where I'm just crying and upset and mad at the world. And so she goes to blow it in my eyes, and it was my fault because I left it in my cast chair, and she blew it in my eyes, and the menthol had melted, the crystal had melted, so it shot the liquid into my eyes.
Oh my God.
After spray on steroids. And so I was literally, could not see, like, had to stop because I was completely blinded. I was dry heaving.
Oh man.
Middle of the summer, so I'm sweating my ass off. I'm fucking frustrated as all get out. I'm just like, I can't fucking see. And Jonas is like, you good? You ready to roll? And I'm like, no, dude, I can't see. Where are you at? Like, it was.
He's like, all right, let's shoot.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was cool to, like, you know, as an actor be challenged. I think especially in a YA show, you know, to go to the distance that we did in a lot of circumstances like that and make it feel real. I mean, I'm super proud of everybody for, you know, making it feel somewhat authentic and realistic.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
yeah.
It was well worth it, everything you guys did to achieve crying. Obviously, we very much enjoyed it. How much input did you guys have in your own scenes? So, like, you received the script and you read it as it is. Do you guys think you changed a lot that was in it, or do you think it kind of stayed the same from the first time you read it?
I wouldn't say a lot, but we did have a lot of input.
We did.
A lot of improvised moments. Like, for example, one of my favorite improvised moments was when we're outside the crane house, and then Sarah goes inside with Key, and then I tell her to be careful, and then JJ and Pope are like, be safe. Be so safe. That whole bit was improvised. Like, none of that.
Wow, that was one of my favorite moments
I laughed hard
too. That was great.
And I was like, I'm gonna kill you both. And then when JD was like, well, that can't say. That was and yeah, so it was cool, but a lot of the character choices, nuances, our writers are so cool about the fact that like they give us the world, and they're so gifted in their actual writing too. So even although there was some great improv moments, there was a lot of really funny scripted
scripted moments.
But we did have a lot of input on our characters.
Yeah, I think that what's really great is, I mean, I was in Charleston with JD and Rudy like from the beginning, and the banter that JJ and Pope have is the same on the show as it is in real life, if not watered down. Like they are, that when you see them kind of go back and forth, that's who they are to a T. Like they are so funny together. And I think what's great about our writers is that they saw that and they're like, let's capitalize on this. Y'all like just keep it going. Like doesn't matter if it's the same each take, like just keep going. And the thing is, like with those two, every take is different, like, and they're coming up with things on the spot. Like they're incredible at improv. And I think what's also really great about the casting process is Lisa Mae Fincannon, she is amazing at her job. And Jonas as well. Like they both have such a great sense of people and character. And so I think in the process, they were being so specific because they were looking for things that they wanted that people had that were mirrored in their characters. So when you have a group of people that kind of have their characters in them a little bit, they were able to trust us with the script. And so we went off book quite a bit. And, you know, they would guide us, be like, yes or no. But it was really cool to be a part of a young adult show where it was pretty flexible.
Yeah.
There was one scene in particular that got cut that Rudy and JD had some of the funniest banter. And it's when we're in the Twinkie and we're going to the graveyard where my grandmother is buried. And there was one bit in particular where Rudy and JD were going back and forth, fully improv. Like this was just a conversation that turned into like, hey, we need to roll cameras on this. And it was a conversation about who would win in a fight. Would it be Clifford the Big Red Dog or Godzilla and why? It went on like 15 minutes straight. And Bo, our camera operator, is stuck in the back like one of these numbers. And I could not keep my shit together. Like it was the funniest thing. And then after that, they're probably going to kill me for saying this, but they were like going back and forth about Caillou and how they believe that Caillou is the spawn of Satan and so mean the entire show. And I literally had to look at Bo and I was like, just don't point the camera at me. Like I'm driving the car, I'm full tears listening to them, and me and Key are sitting in the front seat just in hysterics at this. And they're just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And so I'm so bummed it didn't make the cut, but like, I can't wait for the bloopers to come out.
I was just going to say, release the deleted scenes.
It's obnoxious, like some of these takes.
It's absolutely obnoxious. It's so funny, too, because it would be like 3, 4 a.m. and Rudy would be going back and forth. And it's so funny. And they don't stop.
Yeah.
And like ever. And so like sometimes at like 3 or 4 a.m. you're laughing, but you're also crying a little bit because you're like, please get it together. Like I want to go home.
Please shut the fuck up. All those guys are hilarious.
JD and I have this inside joke. It was a scene on the porch where like John B brings Sarah to the Pogues for the first time. And I was trying to be like moody, and it's really hard to be moody when you've got Rudy and JD just going back and forth. And I looked over and I didn't mean to have an attitude. I was like, do you stop? Do you breathe? And so like they were like, oh okay. Sarah Cameron's here. And so now it's just this inside joke between JD and I. We're just like, do you stop? Do you breathe? But yeah, no, they are like two Energizer bunnies. They're just like BBs in freight cars. They just
Well, we're very excited because we get to talk to them next week too.
We can't wait.
Oh my God, you guys are gonna have to cry. It is.
I mean, we there was no way we were like, we can't talk to them without talking to the other two and talking. We want everybody. We want everything. And I think the fans want to see all those videos because obviously we were left on
as much as we possibly can.
And you guys have been great with posting like behind the scenes stuff. It's been really cool to watch. But I mean, the show ended on a major cliffhanger. And if you guys don't get a season 2, Rhea and I and all of our listeners will protest.
I'm going to protest, and so are the Chicks in the Office listeners, because listen, the amount of DMs I have gotten, like, oh my God, I watched this show because you couldn't stop talking about it. And I'm like, Netflix, hello, put me in France season 2. Like, we could just be extras. Like, we'll be in the back drinking. That's all we need.
Party, season 2.
That's it. Yeah. If there's any like big party scene, just toss us. We're great.
We'll drink
parties.
in the back.
I can pass for TV 16.
If I can pass for 16, then y'all are good.
Yeah,
totally.
I mean, I'm 22. I feel like I can. You're 22, right, Madelyns? And you're 27.
Yeah. I'm going on at this point.
Yeah. It's right. I'm 25, and we got an alcohol delivery here the other day at the house, and the man looked at me and was like, ma'am, how old are you? And I was like, I'm 25, I swear. Like, I'm not. Yeah, he was like, am I just dropping off alcohol for someone underage? I was like, no, I'm 25. Like, I can show you my ID. But I did want to ask you guys, I wanted to ask you guys about the end, because obviously it's such a cliffhanger, but I want to know, like, what is your dream scenario for where Sarah and John B are right now?
I mean, obviously, for selfish purposes, I want to go to the tropics or the Bahamas. I don't know. I mean, I would love to do that, but I also we've talked about this with Jonas. Like, we kind of see this like Blue Lagoon castaway type, love story in the OBX world, which I think would be really, really cool to shoot. Like, have Sarah and John B like have a breather for a second in this really beautiful, like, idyllic situation in this like kind of honeymoon phase before all the things that they've been running from like catch up to them, and then we just go back. We just do a deep dive into the rabbit hole again. I would love that.
Yeah, I think there's so many loose ends in the show, and it's the most frustrating, but also the most exciting part of it. Yeah. Because like, what happens with Ward? Like, I threw him under the bus. Like, the cops, do they prosecute him? Am I going to get prosecuted? Like, is she going to get prosecuted? Because besides being framed for murder, like, I stole a cop car. I have assaulted people. I have breaking and entering charges. So like, how does, the lay of the land work out in those circumstances? So I think for me, it's like, I want to see like the cultural elements of like being in the Bahamas, because there's so many dark secrets of the Bahamas that people don't realize for surface value, because we're like, oh, let's go on a Royal Caribbean cruise and go to get our hair braided in Nassau and go drink Mai Tais at Senior Frogs. But like, what is the reality of the underbelly of this place, and how quick are we going to get consumed by it, if at all? Or just escape, by the seat of our pants again. But I think it's exciting because Josh, Shannon, and Jonas are like the master of cliffhangers, as you guys know. So like, just to get our hands on materials, I think is going to be exciting when the time comes. For sure. Hopefully we don't have to go riot the scene in front of Netflix, and we can just get this baby rolling.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think we will have to.
Yeah, I think you guys got it locked in. Unfortunately, we're being told we need to wrap up, or else Netflix is going to get mad at us. Oh, no. One last question. They're going to get mad at me for asking this, so it has to be quick. But to wrap it up, how do you feel about the I would die for John B movement that the girls at Barstool Sports have started?
I fully support it. I'm 100% behind it. I literally almost shit my pants when I saw the shirt. I was like, this is thing. And the fact that it's tie-dye, I was like, you guys are
it looks so Dubin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, I told you, I shopped there before. I was like thinking about ideas, what would fit together. And listen, shout out to you guys, because it helped us. Our bosses were happy. They were like, great job on that merch. But thank you guys so much for joining us. Everybody go stream Outer Banks on Netflix if you haven't already. Please do it. Season 2, we need you. Thank you, Chase and Madelyns, so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for talking to us.
Yeah. Till next time. And Rough and Rowdy.
Please.
Rough and Rowdy.
You guys will be there. I promise.
We'll all hang out. We'll have a great time.
Full tuxedo suits with top hats and canes.
I'm gonna come in colonial wear.
a must.
Perfect.
Yep. We'll match
Perfect.
you. We'll figure it out.
We'll pick themed outfits. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.